Two vehicles stop at the same red light. Both carry the Stuttgart crest on their hoods, one stickered at $68,000, the other at over $250,000. Same badge, same dealer network, same lane of traffic, different planets. Most people look at the crest and see one brand. What's actually underneath it is six mechanically distinct tiers, each built on a different engineering logic, funded by a different buyer psychology, and designed to do a fundamentally different thing. Before I start, someone's going to say the GTS. Someone else is going to bring up the RS Spider program. We'll get there. Level 1. The Gateway SUV. The Macan is built on the MLB Evo platform, the same modular architecture underpinning the Audi Q5. That isn't a criticism, it's a structural reality. Porsche licensed and tuned the platform, tightened the steering calibration, and reworked the damper mapping. The result is a compact SUV that drives noticeably better than its corporate stablemates, but it shares fundamental bones with vehicles costing $30,000 less. The Macan T enters at roughly $65,000 with a four-cylinder turbocharged engine producing 265 horsepower. The top-tier Macan Turbo pushes that to 375 horsepower and $90,000. The new all-electric Macan starts at $72,000 and introduces a dedicated EV platform. That's a genuinely different engineering foundation. But most buyers aren't buying the platform. They're buying the crest. At this level, the product stops being transportation. It becomes a crest on a steering wheel. That's not nothing, but it's not what the marketing implies. Level 2. The core profit engine. The Cayenne is the reason every other vehicle in this list exists. When the brand launched the Cayenne in 2002, Porsche's survival was not guaranteed. The SUV generated margins that funded the Carrera GT program, bankrolled the motorsport division, and gave the engineering department the budget to develop the current 911 architecture. Without the Cayenne, there is no GT3. That's not conjecture. It's documented corporate history. The entry Cayenne at $85,000 runs a 3.0-liter turbocharged V6, producing 348 horsepower. The Cayenne Turbo GT at $202,000 deploys 631 horsepower through a tuned chassis that lapped the Nürburgring Nordschleife in 7 minutes 38.9 seconds, faster than the original Carrera GT supercar. A family SUV faster around the ring than a hypercar from 20 years ago. That gap required serious engineering. The enthusiast parent who needs actual towing capacity but demands active anti-roll stabilization books the Cayenne e-hybrid. The buyer who wants the fastest SUV lap record books the Turbo GT. Both are correct applications of the same platform. Level 3. The executive instrument. This is the answer to a question most manufacturers never asked. How do you move four adults at supercar velocities without making the rear passengers feel like cargo? The Panamera platform was engineered from a blank sheet, no shared architecture with the SUV line. The PDK dual-clutch transmission calibration and the PDCC active chassis control system in the top Panamera variants trace their development directly to endurance racing prototypes from the LMP1 program. The technology didn't trickle down from motorsport, it was reverse-engineered from it. The Panamera base enters at $105,000. The Panamera Turbo S e-hybrid exits at $215,000, producing a combined 700 horsepower from a twin-turbo V8 and an electric motor. 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds. With four adults and their luggage. The Panamera GTS sits in the middle at around $140,000 with a naturally aspirated feel that's been largely abandoned elsewhere in the lineup. The corporate executive who refuses an upright SUV silhouette but requires rear seat climate control books the Panamera. The buyer who wants to cover 500 miles in a single day and arrive focused books the Turbo S e-hybrid. The driver who wants mechanical feedback over raw output books the GTS. Level 4. The mid-engine purist tool. The 718 Cayman has a lower center of gravity, better weight distribution, and a shorter wheelbase than the 911. By the laws of physics, it should handle better. It does. The 718 Cayman GT4 RS uses the same 4.0-liter naturally aspirated flat-six engine from the 911 GT3, 493 horsepower, rev limited at 9,000 revolutions per minute. The noise is not incidental, it is the product. The standard 718 Cayman T enters at roughly $75,000. The GT4 RS reaches $160,000. The price gap between those two variants is $85,000, and it is justified entirely by the engine swap and chassis tuning, not by interior appointments or additional features. The track day purist who understands that mid-engine geometry is mechanically superior to rear-engine geometry books the GT4 RS. The driving instructor books the base Cayman because nothing in its price bracket teaches throttle discipline better. The status buyer skips it entirely because it doesn't photograph as impressively as a 911. Level 5. The rear engine icon. For 6 decades, Porsche has been engineering around a fundamental mistake and turned it into the most recognizable sports car silhouette in history. Placing the engine behind the rear axle creates a weight pendulum that, in theory, should make the car impossible to drive at the limit. Early 911s were genuinely dangerous for drivers who didn't understand the physics. The engineering response was not to move the engine, it was to solve the problem. Active rear axle steering, progressive damping, wider rear track, decades of incremental correction. The result is a car that uses its rear weight bias as a traction advantage rather than a liability. The Carrera T enters at $125,000 and is the most driver-focused base variant in recent memory. Lighter, manual gearbox standard, minimal sound deadening. The GT3 at $230,000 shares its 4.0-liter engine with the Cayman GT4 RS, but deploys it in a rear-engine chassis with a motorsport-derived suspension geometry. The Turbo S at $250,000 produces 640 horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds in a car you can drive to the grocery store. The Silhouette stopped being just a car somewhere around 1980. It became an institution, and institutions don't depreciate the way products do. Level 6. The Asset Class and Future Platform. The Taycan is built on a proprietary 800-volt electrical architecture. The engineering team spent 7 years developing the thermal management system that allows the Taycan to perform repeated hard launches without heat-induced power reduction. Most electric performance vehicles can't manage 3 consecutive full-throttle accelerations. The Taycan was benchmarked to handle 26 consecutive runs on the Nürburgring without degradation. That's not a consumer spec. That's a motorsport validation standard. The Taycan Turbo S starts at $190,000 with 938 horsepower in overboost. The analog counterpart, the Carrera GT, now out of production but trading on the secondary market at $1.2 to $2 million, runs a 5.7-liter V10 with a carbon fiber monocoque chassis and a ceramic clutch so precise that factory delivery included a driving lesson. The 918 Spider Hybrid Hypercar now trades above $2 million at auction. Both were $845,000 when new. At this level, the product stops operating as machinery. It becomes an appreciating asset with a VIN number. The steering wheel is incidental. 2 people buy a Porsche today. One bought a badge. The other bought 60 years of engineering obsession concentrated into a mechanical object. Both transactions happen at the same dealership. One walks out having purchased what the marketing department sold them. The other walks out having purchased what the engineering department built. The brand understood something early that most manufacturers never figured out. You can sell the same crest at $68,000 and at $250,000 and make both buyers feel like they made the right decision. At the bottom, the crest signals aspiration. At the top, the crest signals consequence. If this was useful, subscribe. I break down how things actually work, not how the brochure describes them. See you in the next one.